People keep telling Mario Cristobal that the Miami Hurricanes are the best team in the country. But Coach does not want to hear that right now. It's very clear Cristobal is not satisfied.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And I'm glad Coach isn't satisfied. Miami is still far away from where they need to be and where we want them to be, and that's winning national championships again. The U is not back. The U is back to work. This is a process going on right now, and our head coach is not eating the rat poison. He's not falling into those mouse traps out there. I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. On this loaded episode, we're going to talk a little bit later on with my paisan, Michael LoSauro, who, by the way, is serving our country on the other side of the world in the Navy, and he's also over in the Middle East. He stays up till like 4 a.m., 3 a.m. to watch all of these Hurricanes football games, and he is a ball knower. We're going to break down Miami's start and what Miami needs to do to finish the season strong. I'll give you the reasons why Miami very well can be a national championship contender this year, but also the things that this team needs to sharpen and improve upon in order to get there. Cristobal is right. There's still a lot of work to be done here. We're going to talk about what now seems to be official, the reclassification of Kenton Dopson III, star defensive back out of Miami Norland, was going to be class of 2027. He's now class of 2026, and I think he's going to stick with Miami, by the way. We'll tell you why. But let's talk about Mario Cristobal, who he's been in high demand this season with how good Miami's been so far. He's been doing a lot of big national interviews. And one of the recent interviews that Coach Cristobal participated in, he was on with David Pollock, former Georgia Bulldog, great former Georgia player. And Pollock, he tried to throw a little rat poison at Cristobal, that David Pollock is one of the many national analysts out there, that despite the fact that the Associated Press still has Ohio State at number 1, and Miami at number 2, Pollock, like many others, considers Miami to be the top team in the country, and he's got Miami atop his rankings. And he threw out that to Cristobal. I don't know if he was expecting a thank you or like, I agree with you, David. We're amazing. It's not the response that he got. Miami fans are not surprised by that. So Mario Cristobal says, quote, "We're getting better. We arrived here a few years ago talking about he and his staff. The line of scrimmage was scary and not in a good way. The bodies were very narrow and not very powerful, and there were not many big bodies we could put in there. We recruited really hard. Strength and conditioning has taken its course, and we are getting better." Yeah, you guys remember 2022, which was Cristobal and Mirabal's first year. The offensive line was bad. Like, unfortunately, I think Alex Mirabal is the best offensive line coach in the country, and Mario Cristobal is probably the best head coach / co-offensive line coach in the country, and they couldn't just wave a magic wand on that 2022 offensive line. They needed to get more training, more work in with some of those guys and recruit a lot of new guys on that offensive line. That was before CeCe Maui Noah was there, who came in and started as a true freshman the following year. So they did not inherit a good line of scrimmage team. Cristobal continued. We walked into a program that for 20 years had been in the middle, had a lot of work to do. It was a relentless approach on a daily basis. For me as a player, Miami versus Florida, Florida State, it was always the game. It's a really big deal for our alumni. We're happy for our program and for our players talking about winning those games. We're not even close to what we need to be to accomplish our goals, though, Cristobal said. And here, I think, was the most important part of his response. Coach continued. When you watch us on film, we have a long ways to go, he said. There's a lot to get better at, but massive improvement. Looking forward to this bye week so we can get more guys in that rotation and push to another level. We heard Carson Beck say it before both bye weeks. Miami is in their second and final bye week right now. It's not an off week. It's a work week. It's about improving. It's about sharpening. These guys are not taking vacations to the Bahamas, nothing like that. They're in the facility and they are working. Now, the ones, whatever bodies are banged up, which is inevitable when you've played 5 physical football games, you're getting a little, maybe the guys who are banged up are getting a little extra time to rest and mend their injuries. But everybody is working during this bye week. And low key, I think Cristobal probably likes the fact that even though Miami, dominated Florida State for most of that game, that there were some things on film, as he mentioned. I'm sure specifically in the fourth quarter, a lot of penalties, a lot of effort issues. He is going to be able to teach his team a lot of lessons despite the victory and despite being 5-0. Because if I look at, folks, I'm going to give you my factors, the biggest things that I need to see Miami sharpen, that if you're going to contend for a national championship, you have to be close to perfect to win that, right? There's no perfect team in college football, but you've got to be close to perfect if you're going to be getting through the Ohio States, the Oregons of the world, powerhouse teams that you're going to have to get through to win a championship. I'll give you the things I need to see Miami sharpen, but I'll also give you the factors for why I do believe Miami can be a national championship contender when we come back. We are only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. You want to keep it locked. Folks, we are only getting started with Supply House. When the opening whistle blows on a new repair, get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see parts on your doorstep tomorrow. Over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory and honest lead times keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side covered. If you need parts fast for a project, Supply House has next-day delivery. Talk about a game changer. The Part Finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. So join the free Trademaster program today and score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. Visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free and use promo code SHCollege5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Real people, real service. We're also brought to you by FanDuel. Things we're looking at on FanDuel right now, Miami's likely going to be favored in all of their remaining games. And if you're looking at futures, Carson Beck right now at plus 500 actually has the best odds to win the Heisman Trophy. The NFL season is here. FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Folks, I love that FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I've built parlays. I've tried player props. I bet on futures. I even follow the live lines during games. Whether you're a casual fan or you love diving into the stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack and we spent a long time talking about the struggles of the North Carolina Tar Heels. Bill Belichick allegedly is already working on possibly buying himself out if he can get another job, or North Carolina's trying to fire him. We're going to talk a little bit more about North Carolina because a recruit that Miami is trying to sign in their class of 2026 is someone that North Carolina was trying to flip. I would imagine UNC is going to have trouble flipping or landing anybody at this point with what a dumpster fire that program is right now. But the Miami Hurricanes are not a dumpster fire. We talk about the good and the bad on Locked On ACC, which is available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. All right, so if I look at the obstacles for this Hurricanes team, and by the way, I just want you to know, I proclaim nothing. At no point have I, despite this really good run Miami is on, at no point am I picking Miami to win a national championship. At no point have I even said I feel they should be ranked number one right now, because I am totally cool with Ohio State being defending national champs and still being undefeated. Ohio State, to me, is number one by default until they're not. They're the defending champs. They've got some freaks on that team. Miami's got the creatures that Josh Pate talks about. Ohio State has some freaks, especially our guy, Jeremiah Smith, who's out there doing big things. So I proclaim nothing from Miami, but I do see a team that can absolutely contend for a national championship, a team that deserves to be 5-0, and a team that should keep winning as long as they don't play down to their opponents, okay? But the biggest things I would like to see Miami sharpen, first and foremost, find consistency through 4 quarters. Miami has not played a complete game yet to this point. And my other factor plays into that first factor is penalties. 13 penalties for 114 yards. That's not the mark of a championship team. You're able to win despite that against Florida State. Good luck winning despite 13 penalties for 114 yards against Ohio State if you see them later on this year. So the penalties need to be cut down. The general sloppiness needs to be cut down. And again, you could say it's a good thing or a bad thing that 5 games in, undefeated, Miami looks like one of the top teams in the country, but they haven't played a complete 4-quarter game yet. Emphasis on the word yet, because I know they're capable of doing it. I would love to see it against Louisville coming out of the bye week. And Louisville's going to be a test. Yeah, I know they just lost their first game. They lost in overtime to Virginia. Seems to be the way Virginia wins games these days. Florida State in double overtime and then Louisville in overtime. Louisville has had issues on the offensive side of the football. Their O-line has not been very good. So that could be a recipe for Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor to get off and get going, right? Their quarterback has been inconsistent, has made mistakes. Miller Moss has thrown multiple pick sixes so far this season, including one in that loss to Virginia this past weekend. So their offense has been vulnerable, but they are also very talented because Isaac Brown and Duke Watson, one of the best running back duos in the country. Now, you remember the last time Miami faced a dynamic running back duo, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price. The Hurricanes essentially shut them down against Notre Dame. We'd like to see them do the same thing against Brown and Watson. But for as uneven as Louisville's offense has been, we'll obviously talk a lot more about them next week leading into that game. Louisville's defense has been very good. Like if you look at, the 2 teams in the ACC, Pittsburgh, I think also is in that conversation, but Miami at the top and Louisville has not been far off. They've got a couple of really good defensive linemen. They put a lot of pressure on quarterbacks. So that's going to be a good test for Miami's offensive line. See if they can pass another test this coming year. But the big things for me that Miami needs to improve upon, again, to be a championship caliber team, consistency, and cut down on the penalties. Now, I'd also like to get into, on the bright side, the factors of why I do believe this is a team that has the attitude, has the players, has the creatures to potentially go all the way this year, why Miami is a contender. No glaring weaknesses on the roster for one. Miami can beat you in multiple different ways. If you try to take away the run, the way that Florida State did, and Florida State was somewhat effective taking the run away from Miami, Miami can beat you through the air, or vice versa. You try to take the pass away, they're going to bludgeon you on the ground. Pick your poison. That's on offense. On defense, Miami has a physical and relentless D. They swarm, they hit you hard, they cover well, and most importantly, they pressure the quarterback. Third factor for me, Miami, as we all know, very strong in the trenches. That travels. When you can control the trenches on the offense and defensive side, you give yourself a chance to win every football game. And the other thing to me, and we've talked a lot about Carson Beck this week. Carson, been one of the most impressive quarterbacks in the country so far. You put him either at number 1 or top 3 on just about every list. Having an experienced NFL caliber quarterback like Beck gives you such an advantage. And Beck, by the way, is potentially moving back into the first round of NFL draft discussions. That is the strong year that he is having so far in Miami. So those are the factors that I believe makes Miami a legit contender. A couple of stats on Carson that was put out by David Lake at Inside the U. This is good not only for Beck, but it's also good for the way he's been protected by his O-line. First one, Carson Beck is getting the ball out in an average time to throw of just 2.37 seconds. That ranks 5th fastest of 126 quarterbacks with at least 100 dropbacks. So 5th fastest in terms of getting rid of the football quickly and decisively. His average depth of target is only 8 yards past the line of scrimmage, and his adjusted completion percentage when catchable drops are accounted for is 79.3%, which ranks 19th amongst those quarterbacks. The intended air yards of Beck's passing attempts ranks 87th most in the country. Here is the stat on the O-line, though, that we really love. Carson Beck has dealt with just 23 quarterback pressures this year. Ruben Bain gets that in like a game and a half. He's dealt with just 23 QB pressures this year, second fewest in the entire country. According to Pro Football Focus, Beck has been kept clean from pressure on 84.4% of his dropbacks, which is the best in the country. And in those situations, Carson Beck is completing 77.9% of his attempts while averaging 9.1 yards per attempt and has tossed 9 touchdowns against just 1 interception in those situations. So that, I think, exemplifies what a good season Carson Beck is having right now. All right, so moving on in recruiting, we had a big recruiting show yesterday with recruiting overlord Brian Smith, and one of the players that we talked about is Kenton Dopson III. Standout defensive back, Miami Norland, who has long been talking about reclassifying from class of 2027 to the class of 2026. He's been committed to Miami, by the way, since last March. So he's been in Miami's class of 2027. And then yesterday, I believe he made it official. I'm sure there was paperwork and stuff with his high school that had to get done. Certain grade point average he probably had to reach. He is officially reclassifying and graduating early in 2026, which tells you this is a guy who's not only a great football player if he feels ready to, step into a Power 4 roster as a true freshman a year early, kind of the way Malachi Toney has done at Miami, but he's also crushing it in the classroom. Because I got to tell you, man, I did all right in high school, but I don't think there was any scenario where I expected to be able to graduate a year and a half early like Kenton Dopson is about to do, because he's about to, I think, graduate in December and enroll in spring. And I do believe he will be sticking with Miami and enrolling at Miami because, up until a few weeks ago, the team that seemed to be the biggest threat to flip Kenton Dopson III were the North Carolina Tar Heels. So thank you, Bill Belichick. Thank you, Michael Lombardi, their GM, who has been in my crosshairs this week for running such a clown show and a circus of a program that, look, and listen, there probably will be other schools who will try to flip Dopson because he's a really good player, right? But I don't think it's going to be North Carolina, which seemed to be the team that was closest to doing that. And North Carolina, they put out like a vote of confidence on Bill Belichick, but that's usually the dreaded kiss of death. I got sidetracked. Let's get back to Kenton Dopson III, because this is a really exciting player. And I go back to, we had Larry Bluestein, our boy Blue, who has, I think, been watching Dopson since he was in middle school. This was on a previous episode of Locked On Canes. Here is Larry Bluestein's scouting report on the now reclassified class of 2026 standout defensive back, Kenton Dopson III.
Kenton's like 6'1.5". He's up to about 190 now. He's got great athleticism to play the corner, but he's got the physicality if needed to play safety. And he reminds me a lot of Amari Wallace, a kid that Miami got last year in this cycle that you and I talked about, I think, last July after, he got hurt and he had that compound fracture, and Miami was really, they were so good to him, as far as saying, hey, don't worry. Your scholarship's very much open for you. It's this and that. And that kid worked like a dog to the point where in the spring game, he had a pick. I mean, he did awesome for Miami. And I think that Kenton Dopson's that type of guy. Kenton's like 6'1".
So you love to hear that there from Larry Bluestein. He sees shades of Amari Wallace in Kenton Dopson, says he does think this is a guy who can be ready. I mean, listen, I don't know how much he's going to get on the field as a true freshman, but he can put himself in that conversation. And assuming Miami gets this over the finish line and signs Kenton come December, National Signing Day coming up in a couple of months, Here's the defensive back class that Miami is looking at right now in 2026. You can never have too many, or I would say never have enough really good DBs. Kenton Dopson III, Camden Portis, Jalen Seatbelt Waters, Cortez Redding, Brody Jennings, Jontavius Wyman. Like, you're looking at a DB class, and there are some guys with versatility, like Dobson, Blue mentioned, can play safety if needed. Cortez Redding, same thing. There may be another guy in there that can play safety if need be. You're talking about 6 really good to elite defensive backs that Miami has in this class of 2026. You want to keep it locked right here, folks. We're going to talk with our Paisan, talk a little ball with Michael LoSauro when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. This episode is proudly brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Plus awards than anyone else. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings this same intention to how we craft every model. You can feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. Like our players, we sweat every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda. Move and be moved. We are brought to you by Quo. One of the tools that helps make a huge difference for business owners is Quo, formerly Open Phone. It's the same great business phone system you've heard me talk about before, just with a new name. And here's why it matters. Every missed call is money left on the table. When every customer conversation counts, you need a phone system that keeps you connected 24/7. Quo is the #1 business phone system that streamlines customer communications. It works through an app on your phone or computer, so no more carrying 2 phones or relying on a landline. I love how Quo, formerly known as Open Phone, lets your team share one number and collaborate on calls and texts like a shared inbox, so no customer gets left behind. And whether you're a solo operator juggling everything or part of a larger team, Quo makes it easy to stay responsive and professional. See why over 90,000 businesses trust Quo, formerly Open Phone. Get started free and get 20% off your first 6 months at quo.com/lockedoncollege. That's QUO.com/lockedoncollege. And if you've got existing numbers with another service, Quo will port them over at no extra charge. Quo, no missed calls, no missed customers. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we have the pleasure of connecting with one of our everydayers, hardcore Miami sports fan who happens to be stationed overseas with the Navy, Michael LoSauro, who's also a paisan of mine. He's out there eating chicken cutlets on the other side of the world. How are you, Michael?
I'm good, man. I got some save for you. I'm doing good, brother. I really appreciate you having me on, man. I'm doing great. Thanks.
I appreciate that. And you stay up until like 2:30, 3 a.m. overseas with the Navy to watch all of these games.
Don't tell my work that. I don't want them knowing that. But I stay in touch as much as I can. Try to get some sleep. But yeah, I'm all locked in with the Canes. So.
What were your big takeaways, Michael, from the win against Florida State?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously big win, right? 20-22 win. Big win, huge momentum builder for Mario Cristobal in Miami heading into the bye week. We're preparing for Louisville next week. And also that's really big for the state recruiting as well, the state recruiting battle. I'm sure we'll flip some recruits headed our way. But for me, I'll start with some positive takeaways and get into some negatives. So first with the positives on defense, like we got some dogs. We play physical, and we won the turnover battle. And I know some things that they're talking about, like Miami doesn't give style points in the box score. And I say people need to understand, like we held FSU a top rushing offense to season lows in 2 categories, 132 rushing yards and only 3.5 yards per carry. So we showed up when we need to. And that's what Corey Hetherman brought from Minnesota. His ESV mantra, he's been saying it all year, effort, swarm, violence, and he's really instilled that through the season for Miami. So he really hit the nail on the head versus FSU. A little sloppy towards the end, but we finished the game.
I mean, how concerned were you about the sloppiness afterwards? Because I talked to Canes fans and, people who analyze college football every single day, and a lot of people are just like, hey, they took their foot off the gas, but they dominated most of the game. But then you talk to some fans and they're like, oh my God, this is why we're not going to win a national championship because we can't close games out. Where are you on that spectrum?
No, I see it both ways, but for me, it's very important because, like you said, defense wins championships. And that's one thing I wanted to get later on the podcast as well with Mario Cristobal. I'm a big believer in Mario Cristobal. He's a great coach, outstanding recruiter. He bleeds orange and green. This guy's Miami. He's Cuban. He's a Miami alum. He speaks Spanish. This guy is everything there is to say about Miami. But for me, with those 2 points, Miami does have to finish games. In defense, I mean, they got a little sloppy towards the end, but the big thing what I want to see with Mario Cristobal moving forward, especially going into ACC play, is that sometimes we are a little bit ultra conservative with the lead, and that can cause problems because you got to remember that's when your play calling gets predictable, and that's when our offense starts to stall out. For example, we'll start FSU. They made some adjustments. They came out pre-game to stop the run. They loaded 8 in the box. They realized they're running a 3-3-5 defense. That's a light box versus a power running team. So they tried to take away the run, and they did. But late in the fourth quarter, maybe we started a little bit too early, but we got a little predictable. Run, pass, punt. Run, punt. So that's what championship teams do is they finish with the lead. We have to learn how to finish with the lead and finish games and really put our necks on opponents' throats. Like Jimmy Johnson was talking about, dominating and finish games. That's what championship teams do. So I was a little concerned.
Yeah, and I know Mario Cristobal is not satisfied. I mean, we talked this week about the comments that he made on a couple of different interviews, and everyone's like throwing out all this flattery to him, like, "Hey, coach, I got you ranked #1 now," and Miami is ranked #2 by the AP. But a lot of college football analysts have Miami at #1, and Cristobal, Michael, does not want to hear that rat poison. Like, he just wants to focus on getting better every day, because I think you're right about a lot of what you said. And to this point, and I look at this in an encouraging way, 5 games in, Miami's already beaten 3 ranked opponents, another victory against a team that was ranked at a time this year. And we haven't seen a complete game from this team yet, and I don't think we've seen this team play their best football yet.
No, I agree, absolutely. And that's the thing, too. Did you see Ruben Bain's face on the sideline sitting on the bench after the game? He wasn't satisfied either. So I saw his face, and I'm like, he's probably so mad. But, I mean, like you said, we got to finish games. But I think Miami still has their best football down the stretch. And one thing I think we need to clean up for takeaways is penalties. We had 13 penalties for 114 yards. And that was a little bit concerning. I get it. It's a rivalry game. Stakes are high. The crowd knows at Florida State. Even though when we were up 28-3 going into the fourth quarter, I'm sure the stands got so quiet. I wasn't there. You could probably hear the Miami fans partying over in the Clevelander down in South Beach. But as of right now, I do want to see a little bit we have to finish games. And for Miami to get back to that dominance and to get in the playoff contention, we need to start finishing games. But I have confidence in these guys. These guys are going to battle back, and they're going to start planning versus Louisville next week.
You're spot on. And Michael and I didn't compare notes on this, but when I talked about earlier in this episode, the big things that I would like to see Miami sharpen if they're going to be a true national title contender. First of those, consistency through 4 quarters. We've not played a complete game yet. And then the other one, penalties. Got to cut down on these penalties. I mean, Miami gave Florida State more than a free football field worth of yards. I think it was 13 penalties for 114 yards in the game. But then I look at, Michael, the reasons why I do believe Miami is and can be a national title contender. They don't have any glaring weaknesses on the roster, and they can beat teams in multiple different ways. The team is physical and relentless on defense. They're strong in the trenches, and have an NFL caliber experienced quarterback in Carson Beck. And we saw what Beck was able to do against Florida State when Florida State's defense was focusing on taking the run away. And okay, you do that, we're going to find another way to beat you. And that's what Miami did, beating them down the field. 5 games into his Miami career, what are your big thoughts on Carson Beck so far as a Cane?
And what a statement, what a start for Carson Beck as a Cane. Yeah. And I'm just so impressed with this guy. I mean, he's one of the most experienced players on the field. He's been in big games before, and that was his first road test, his first away game, rivalry game in Doak Campbell, and he responded with his best game of the year. And that's what the leader of a quarterback of a national championship team needs to do. They take control of the game. They play their best games when it matters. 4 touchdowns, 2 for over about 240-something yards. He killed it. He took care of the football, and that's what I like about Carson Beck. It's different last year with Cam Ward. He was electric, extending plays, making everything happen. But the thing with Carson Beck and company is that all he needs to do is give the ball to his running backs, let them cook, let the O-line bully them in the trenches, and just give the ball to his playmakers in space and let them make plays. He doesn't need to do too much. All he needs to do is just control the game and give the ball to his receivers and his running backs and just not commit any turnovers, because that's what he does so well. And when he's not pressured, as you've seen all year, I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to pressure Miami's backfield because their O-line is so stout and they're very physical, the best O-line unit in the country. But with Beck, he's so poised and calm in the pocket. And one thing about Beck is that if you give him time to throw, he's going to surgically fillet you, and he's proven that through these first 5 weeks.
Defensively, Miami's got one of the best, if not the best, defenses in the country right now, which, again, it's such a turnaround from last year. Like, they were a liability last season, especially in the defensive secondary, but also not good enough with their defensive front last year. Having Ruben Bain fully healthy this year obviously helps a lot, but they underperformed on D. And you probably saw, prior to the season, Michael, I kept talking about how Corey Hetherman, how quickly he transformed Minnesota's defense last year. We seem to be seeing the same thing now happening in Miami. Credit to the personnel as well. Do you have any concerns maybe still about the defense? Because maybe certain areas they haven't been fully tested yet this year, or are you looking at a championship level defense in your mind?
I really do think it's championship level defense. I mean, they play one of the most explosive offenses in the country at FSU, even though some say their stats may have been inflated, but I still think they're a dominant offense. They have a dual threat quarterback, and Gus Malzahn's one of the best offensive minds in the game. He hits you with misdirection, RPO, orbit motion. He makes you stretch the field as a defense. But that's why I also love Corey Hetherman's 4-2-5 defense he brought here. We've been running that for a little bit, but what's great about it is you get 6 in the run fit. You have an extra nickel back in space versus the spread, and to be able to cover their athletes downfield. And here's what I love about this defense. And people aren't talking about this enough. I know Bain and Mesidor, they're getting all the praise, Red Heisman buzzing. They are. They've been playing out of their mind. But the thing is that no one's talking about safety Jacoby Thomas. This guy against FSU, he had 5 tackles, 1 interception, 1 forced fumble, and he was playing relentlessly against Florida State. He's out of his mind. He's filling downhill in the run game. He's hitting hard. He's making big plays. And also, Keontae Scott, the Auburn transfer at nickelback. This guy is probably the biggest piece of the defense. And I know Hetherman's been probably our best upgrade to defense this year, but he really went after the DBs in the portal, and it's paid off because with the way Keontae Scott plays is that nickelback position in the 4-2-5 defense is the hardest position on the field. You got to hit like a linebacker, you got to cover like a corner, and you got to be versatile. And you have multiple jobs to do, and he's been anchoring. And if a player is really performing well, is if that they're not calling his name on the loudspeaker. That means he's locking guys down, he's doing his job. And that's the thing, lastly, about Corey Hetherman's defense. I really think we're championship level. We're getting there, but we have to finish the season. But with Corey Hetherman, I mean, tremendous job, probably our biggest hire in a long time. And I'm so excited to keep seeing this defense swarm play physical football.
And our guest here, Michael LoSauro, not only is he a Paisan, which always gets people to the front of the line on this show, but he's also serving our country overseas in the Navy. God bless you and thank you for your service. And you were also telling me every year you go down to Peru and teach American football down there. Tell me, because you're clearly a ball knower. Anyone knows that hearing you talk. Tell me about the work that you're doing down in South America.
I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much for your support. And I mean, football is my passion. I mean, I'm from Tampa, Florida. Played it my whole life through high school. I forewent the college football to go play in the military. I just started going to Peru. My first time I went was back in 2023. I've been there 2 times now. I'm going to start going every year. I helped assisting. I reached out to this team. They're called the Callao Pirates, the Piratas de Callao in Lima, Callao, Peru. I help coach an underserved football team over there. They lack a lot of resources and funding and needs, but it gives them a good outlet. And these guys love the sport. So I go over there. These guys are great kids. There's a great coaching staff. I'm going to shout out Coach Augusto Linares, Jose Anton, and the quarterback leader. These guys really, these are special guys to me. So I go over there every year, ran them through drills. We just share the sport we love. And the thing is about football is that you can build characteristics and give life lessons that go beyond the game. And that's what my goal is when I go over there, is just share my love for the sport and connect with those guys.
I love it. Well, that's awesome. And last thing before we let you run, how far does Miami go this year? Playoff run, or where do you think it ends for the Canes?
So here's the thing, like I said, so this is the biggest test for Miami for me this year. We've seen in years past, right, where Miami has, down the stretch of the season, we go into the later half of the season, where Miami, October, November, December creeps up, and people are worried about the out-of-conference games, the SEC opponents. We usually drop opponents, we drop games in ACC play down the stretch.
That's right.
So we need to be focused on the ACC games more than anything because we have to learn how to finish the season. I think we have what it takes to be a national championship contender if we keep playing aggressive with the lead and stick to our game plan. Because against FSU, we were up 28-3. We should keep playing to what led our score to be what it is and keep the game plan going, stay aggressive. And the last thing about that is across the board, I mean, I'm proud of this team. We still have a long way to go. Cristobal still wasn't satisfied. He said we have a long way to go. We're going to keep working. But I think we have what it takes to make it to the championship. But our first goal right now, Rap Boys, and don't look ahead, and make it to the ACC championship game and win our first ACC championship. That should be our goal right now. And if Cristobal keeps everyone focused, we play disciplined football, we make good coaching decisions, good clock and time management throughout the games, and we just impose our will in the trenches, we're going to go far, and we have a shot to go for it all this year.
Yeah, and your approach is right, because for as good as it's been so far, 5-0, number 2 in the country, still got 7 ACC games left. So there are plenty of opportunities to fall into traps if we're not focused and careful. Well, we appreciate our guy, Michael, serving our country. So make sure everyone, let's thank Michael, who's not only serving our country, but then he's also down teaching American football in South America when he's not serving our country. It's really awesome to be able to connect with you. And we'll talk to everybody next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.